My pranams to all Atma Jyotis, divine light of the self. Today, let us take up the story of the ego or ego story. What is this ego story? We have heard so many stories. We have heard history, histories, his story. We have heard Ramayana, Ramakatha, Rama story. We have heard Bhagavatam, Krishna Katha. What is ego story? Ego story is Aham Katha. It is my story and your story. It is called Aham Katha. Have you not Aham Katha? Have you heard of this Aham Katha? Actually, every day we keep hearing Aham Katha. Every day we keep telling ourselves stories about me. We tell stories about the world to myself. We keep talking to ourselves. And that story is the story of the ego. It's Aham Katha. We have heard so many things about ego. What is this ego? Ego is a great storyteller. It is a master storyteller. It's a great salesman. We have heard great salesmen where they sell ice to Eskimos, air conditioner to Eskimos who live in the igloos where there is snowfall. There are great salesmen who go and sell air conditioner to igloos. They sell ice to igloos. Where there is no need, they create the need and sell products. But there is a great salesman in all of us. That great salesman is called ego. It creates the situations which are not there, and they create need for that, and then tries to sell us the stories. And we believe the stories. First, we believe the stories. Ego is self-identity. It's an identity we create for ourselves in the form of story. And we tell the story to ourselves every time. Every day we keep telling the story to ourselves. We talk to ourselves about our own story. We get convinced about it. So, what is your story? That your story or my story is called ego story. It's called Aham Katha. It is called Aham Katha. What is this ego story? There's a great sculptor. There's a great sculptor. He was so famous for his sculptures. He creates sculptures which are alive, which look alive. The great sculptor, one day heard from an astrologer that his day of death, his death is approaching exactly at 12 o'clock on such and such a day. The sculptor wanted to avoid death. He created 12 statues of himself, exactly which looks like himself, and stood with one of the statues. Nobody can find out who is real sculptor, and which is statue. The Lord of Death, Yamadharmaraya, sends his servants to get the life of the sculptor. The servants come there and get confused. Who is the real person? Who is the sculptor? They go back and tell Yamadharmaraya. Now Yamadharmaraya himself comes. So he sees 13 sculptures which are exactly alike. You don't know which is alive, who is the sculptor, and which are the sculptures. Yamadharmaraya says, what a wonderful sculpture, what a great sculptor is this guy. I have not seen any sculptor of this nature, but whatever he has done, there's a defect in that. There's a defect, a small defect, but for this he is a great sculptor. Immediately the sculptor who is standing along with the statue comes up and asks, this is the defect, I want to correct it. This is ego. Ego does not accept any deficiency in you. Ego wants to create a story for yourself. Ego wants to make a hero out of zero. All of us want to create ourselves as heroes, and that story which is created by us is called ego story. Yamadharmaraya laughs and says, this is the defect. Your ego is the defect. The sculptures don't have the defect. You have the defect, ego. So he takes the life of that guy. So ego is the defect in human beings. What is this ego? Ego is the way we look at the world, the way we understand the world. We need to make sense of the world and sense of our relationship to the world. That's why we create stories. Human mind loves stories. And the stories are created by the ego. Ego is the master storyteller. We cannot understand, comprehend the complexity of the world. The world is what happens in the world, how the things are happening, and how I am able to relate to the world. The mind needs some pattern, and the pattern is created in the form of story. And the story is how you see yourself and how you see yourself in relationship to the world. How you see yourself. I am a good man. See, I am a great man. This is one type of story. It's called good story. There are people who have story of life. I am a man who is suffering. I am a woman who is suffering. This suffering story. The happy story, the suffering story. Then there is a success story. I am a very successful person. So the stories are of different kinds, but all are stories, and no story is real. The no story of ego is real. It's all false. The story is helpful, but it's not real. Why the story created by ego is false? The story is made up of images, made up of incidents in life. Now, every incident is an experience. Let us take good experience. I went to a beach, such a wonderful place. I have very good memories of that. So experience of beach is a wonderful memory. That's a photo snapshot. In that photo, the beach is there, the experiencer is there. But what is missing there is the photographer. In any photo, the photographer is missing always. When you go to experience the beach, the real seer is the Atma, the Sakshi, the consciousness. The consciousness is missing there. The consciousness is the seer. And the experience is the photograph. So you record the photograph as the beach and me. In that me, what is there? The body, and the beach is there. So that is a photograph. The real seer is missing the photograph, and the real photographer will never come in any photograph, even in the day-to-day life. So the memory only records the objects; it doesn't record the subject. This real subject is the Sakshi, the witness. That's not recorded. So then you say, I have a wonderful memory of the beach. Then you recollect it after 10 days. I went to the beach. So now again a lie, a false. Because here, the what you call as I is body, mind, and intellect. It has changed. So 10 days what went the body, mind, and intellect is there in the beach. And today what body, mind, and intellect is there in the beach is different. What is common is the real I, which is consciousness, which has not changed. But when you speak of I, you are always referring to the body, mind, and intellect, not to the real I. So you are taking a photograph which doesn't record the subject, real subject I, and you are comparing with the today's situation where you are also again forgetting the real I and only speaking of the object. So then you make a story of life. I am suffering. Since childhood I suffered, and as I as I become younger, I suffered. As I got married, I suffered. In whole of my life, I am suffering. So you are taking the photographs of suffering, the incidents of suffering, and putting together a story. What you don't understand is that all the characters in the story of suffering are not you. The consciousness is the real you. And the consciousness doesn't suffer. The consciousness is the witness of this story. Are you getting what I'm saying? The story is the characters, which are the objects. The body, mind, and intellect is the object. The body, mind, and intellect keeps constantly changing. And that you call as yourself. The yourself doesn't change. The I, the real I, the consciousness doesn't change. It's the witness of all these changing phenomena. So you make a story out of the characters which are not real. And then you say, I am suffering in life. My whole life I am suffering. Then you say, make a story, in my whole of life I am successful. Again, the story of a character, a fictitious character which is constantly changing. The ego story is false. Then we have stories about the world. Oh, how the world is. The world is a great place to live in is one story. What you don't understand is the world is constantly changing. It's a constantly changing. There is nothing called solid world at all. It's a constant movement. World is a great place to live. A world is a horrible place to live is another story about the world. The world is dynamic. It's constantly changing. Like waves in the ocean. No two waves are alike. The body, mind, and intellect is constantly changing. Then what is not changing? The Sakshi, the witness of this. In whole of my storyline, the story of the body, mind, intellect is there. The world is there, which is constantly changing, which is dynamic. And even the dynamic, we take snapshots and try to put together a story. We make a movie out of still shots, images, and then we call it as my life story. Do you do that? That is the story of the ego. The story of the ego is nothing real. So when you may meet your old friend, okay, old friend comes, you see how many years we have not met, so much to share. Okay, you have to hear my story. He will start blah 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 blah. Story goes on, and then you are not you don't want to hear his story. You want to tell your story. You start your story, blah, 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 story goes on. Everybody wants to tell a story, okay? And this story is the story of the ego, nothing real in that. It is no doubt, it is required for you to make a story of various moving events, to make some sense of the world, because world, if it's very random, you cannot make a sense out of the world. So you make a sense out of this randomness of the world and call it as a story. The story is required for you to meaningfully transact in the world, because some coherent pattern is required. But the problem starts when you start believing your story. You start believing your own story, and you call yourself as I am the sufferer, I am a successful man, I am a failed man, I am a happy man, I am an unhappy man. All these stories are ego stories. And once you start believing the story of ego, it is called samsara or suffering. And that is called Maya. Maya is believing in the story of the ego. That's all is Maya. The ego story is projected on a screen, like movie is projected on a screen. The screen doesn't change. The movie keeps changing. The movie is the ego story. The movie is not real. The screen only is real. The screen is the Atma, the self, the witness, the Sakshi, which doesn't change. And one who watches the movie, he doesn't even bother about the screen. He is only bothered about the character in the movie. The characters are not real. The screen is real. The screen is the Atma, the self. Ego wants to project the image to the world. Project, I am great, the image to the world. You create a story for yourself and you create an image to the world. There was a Zen master who was a great archer, and he had a great disciple, a great student who is a great archer also. The great archer, the disciple, wins prize in the country. He is known as a great archer in the country. He wins a competition where he is awarded golden bow and arrow, saying that he is a great archer. Now he feels so great about himself. But he has a problem. He has defeated everybody in the country. He has defeated every single person in the country. But he has not defeated his master. There's one person whom he has not defeated. His master who taught him the ego archery. His ego is not satisfied. Until I defeat my master, I'm not the greatest archer in the country. He wants to defeat his master. And he challenges his master. He comes to the master and challenges, I want to invite you for a competition. So if I win, you have to declare me as the greatest archer in the world. So then only I'll be satisfied. Unless you declare me as greatest archer, I will not be satisfied. The master says, okay, show me your skill. The archer takes an arrow and shoots at a tree. The arrow splits the tree exactly into half. Very sharp skill. Then he shoots an arrow looking at the image in the water, and he shoots the arrow and pierces the eye of a fish which is kept hanging above. The fish, a sculpture of fish is kept hanging above, and image of that scene in water. Using the image, he shoots the arrow and pierces the eye of the fish. Then he hears some sounds of some birds. He hears the sounds of birds. Birds cannot be seen. And he shoots the arrow based on the sound. And the bird is dead. The archer is so proud of his skills. He shows the master, see master, you taught me some of these and I improved on that. I am such a great archer. Now, can you declare me as the greatest archer in the world? The master says, Zen master says, no doubt, you are a wonderful archer. Let us do one more final test. Okay. So let us go. Then the master and disciple go. They go to a mountain. Between the two mountains, the tall mountain, and between the two mountains, there's one small ropeway, just a ropeway where there's no support. And the master, if you stand on the ropeway and look at the below, there is 5,000 feet deep below. You will break your bone. The master walks down the ropeway, takes an arrow, and shoots the arrow, and a fruit in the tree falls. The master comes back and tells the archer, now you do the same thing. The archer cannot even walk on the ropeway. He's so scared. His heart is beating. If he fall, bones will be broken. The archer said, I can't do this. The master says, my dear student, you will become a great archer the day you conquer your ego. The ego is afraid of real situation in life. Ego can boast. Ego can create some wonderful scenery. Ego can show real wonderful skills in life. Ego can master anything. But when the real life comes, the ego trembles. Ego is afraid. Ego cannot face the situation in the present moment. That is the ego. Ego cannot withstand the reality of life. Ego can create a lot of imaginary situations. The master says, the day you conquer your ego, you are the greatest archer. The ego is a great storyteller. It creates story for ourselves. It tells the story, our own story. Repeatedly, we keep on repeating the story in our own mind. So I'm such a suffering person. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. This story we keep repeating, taking all imaginary incidents in our life. So what happens? There are different types of stories, right? There's a horror story. There's a success story. There's a love story. There is the different types of stories. What does this ego do? Ego will ignore all the unwanted portions of the experience and only puts together all successes and makes success story. A person who has become successful also has many failures in life. All the failures are ignored by edited by ego. It says it will ignore and only takes all the success and makes a big success story. Ego does a good editor also. It's a script writer. It's a movie maker. It's a script writer. Okay, it edits all the things which are unwanted, which doesn't want to show to others. Similarly, somebody who is suffering in life. I am suffering. See, whole of my life I'm suffering. Every day I'm suffering. Every moment I'm suffering. Are you are happy that day? What happy are? It's a momentary. So all the happiness moments are edited by the ego. So you make a suffering story in life. And what joy is there when you want to tell the story to others? You feel so happy. You want to tell the story to others. The ego is so happy. The meet your old friend. The first thing he wants to tell is story. See, so many years are over. Okay, what all happened? The story. This is ego story. When you realize that you are not your story, please understand ego is not the ego story is not your story and you are not the ego. Then your spiritual journey begins. All your story of life is false. Everything what you tell about your story, life is false. Nothing is reality in there. The day you stop believing the story of the ego, you start evolving. So, what does ego do? Ego makes you believe in something which you are not. There are three aspects of you. One is what you think you are, what world thinks you are, and what you really are. What you think you are and what world thinks of you are is a story of the ego. What you are really is the self or Atma, which is none of the stories, which is the witness of the stories, which is the Sakshi. The stories are the movies projected on the screen. You are the screen, you are not the story. The story which is created by ego, first aspect is I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect. Then whole story, lot of story begins. So the story of the ego, how does it end? Then people start taking, okay, I'm very religious person. See, I am a very religious person. I'm not a worldly person. The worldly person is the ego. I am a religious person is another big story. Why I am a religious person? See, I went to this place, yatra. I did this fasting. I did this puja. Every day I do this puja. It's a religious story. I have become a religious story. The ego has turned into religious. Ego changes its color. Ego has every day a story to tell. Without telling a story, ego cannot survive. And ego causes you immense misery and suffering by telling the stories, because you start living in the imaginary world, illusory world. You're not out of touch with the reality of yourself. It's like a shepherd. It's like a shepherd. There's a shepherd. He had many sheep, and he had to take care of the sheep because there are wolves in the forest. He had to take care of the sheep so that he can slaughter them one by one. The shepherd didn't have any servants. Shepherd was a great magician. He hypnotized all the sheep. And he told one sheep, you are a human being. He told another sheep that you are a lion, you are a monkey. And the shepherd only kills only sheep. He will not kill any of the other animals. And many sheep, they started believing they are cows, monkeys, and human beings. And they believed so much, got hypnotized by so much. The shepherd merrily slaughters each sheep, because sheep thinks it is a cow, it's a human being. It doesn't run away. One by one, day by day, he kills all the sheep. And no sheep, every sheep thinks that, oh, he is killing only a sheep. I am not a sheep, I am a human being. The ego hypnotizes you into believing what you are not. And it takes you to slaughterhouse. It makes you suffer in life. Good ego, bad ego. I am religious ego, I am a yogi ego. All egos are hypnotism, self-hypnotism. And it will take you to slaughterhouse. And this self-hypnotism is called Maya in spiritual language. You are not the body, you are not the mind, you are not the intellect, you are consciousness. The ego makes you believe that you are the body, you are the mind, you are the intellect, you are a man, you are a woman, you are a husband, you are a wife. So this belief is self-hypnosis created by induced by the ego. One day you understand all this religious ego, material ego, all this I want to become spiritual. Then spiritual ego starts developing. I'm spiritual. So one day, a monk was walking in a seashore. There a great yogi comes. He walks on water from the other shore and comes to the monk. He wants the monk to appreciate him. I have great miraculous siddhis, miraculous powers. So the monk asks him, you have such a great miraculous powers. You can walk on water. How much time did you take to achieve this siddhi? The yogi says, I did sadhana, spiritual practice for 25 years. The monk says, what is the use? If I give 25 paisa, a boatman will take me across the river. So what happened? In the name of spirituality, we want to achieve something. The spirituality and all this achievement are also another ego story. I want to achieve this. I want to achieve this siddhi. Oh, I prayed to God and God gave me all this. These are all ego cravings. Then we get attracted by many stories, spiritual stories. There are many stories called autobiographies written by great sages, great yogis. And we get attracted by that. So I went there. In that story, somebody would have written, I went there, I saw this miracle, I went there, I went to this place, I went to this place. Please understand, all autobiographies are false. All autobiographies are written by ego. Autobiographies many times inspire us and we start imitating them. We try to become like that. Please understand, all autobiographies are false. They are ego stories. Ego only creates stories to project I am great. The real self, Atma, has no story. A real spiritual being, enlightened being, has no story to tell. The end of all stories is spirituality. What is this ego? Ego wants to become something. Ego is, I want to become something. It continuously, I want to become something. I want to become something. I want to become something. That's ego. Ego is restless. Then finally, ego says, I want to get enlightened because enlightenment is great. What ego doesn't understand is the enlightenment is death of the ego. It's death. It's the end of your story. Full stop. But still, ego wants enlightenment because enlightenment means something great. Enlightenment is end of story of the ego. The full stop. The movie ends. That's called enlightenment. The ego seeks enlightenment. What is this enlightenment all about? We have heard of this zero, right? Zero was invented by Indians. They didn't invent zero because they wanted to invent mathematics. They wanted to invent zero because they wanted to show reality. The Atma, the self, Brahman, is zero. And the ego is a hero. Ego wants to become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Brahman or Atma is zero. Is nothing. So to tell the spiritual truth, our ancestors invented mathematical system. It's called Sankhya Shastra. And from Sankhya Shastra became a spiritual teaching called Sankhya Yoga. With the precision, you tell what is reality. And how do you tell you the precision? Using the zero, they told precisely what you are. Zero is called in Sankhya or mathematics. Zero is called Shunya. And Shunya is Puja. Puja means in earlier days or in mathematics, in Sankhya Shastra, Shunya is called Puja. Puja means respectable. Without zero, there are no number systems. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doesn't come. Without zero, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 number system doesn't come. Without that zero called Paramatma, Atma or Brahman, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the world, the variety of the world, nothing exists. All exist because that zero is there. The world is there, the sun is there, sky is there, moon is there, everything is there because that zero is there. Without zero, nothing exists. And every number 1, 2, 3, 4, always there is zero. 1 plus 0 is 1 only. 2 plus 0 is 2 only. 1, 2 only. So the zero is present in all the numbers. Everything in the creation, this zero is there in the background. But zero has no value. You cannot see zero. The moment you add 0 in front of 1, it becomes 10. Power gets multiplied. The moment you add 0 in front of 100, 2 zeros in front of 1, it becomes 100. The power of anything in the world gets multiplied with that 0 addition. Where you add the 0 matters. If you add the 0 behind, the power gets multiplied. If you add the 0 in front, it remains same. So when we recognize I am the self, I am pure consciousness, a tremendous inner courage and inner strength and inner peace and love opens up in us. That's the adding 0 in front of the number. After the number. Balam, balam, atma balam, 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 brahma balam, tejo balam, brahma balam. Andre, the strength of the self, you recognize, when you recognize that I am the self, the tremendous strength opens up. The fear of death, fear of everything in the world drops. You become fearless because there is 0 behind you. There's Atma behind you. And that strength of 0 is what you have to recognize. That is called Atma, the self. How do you recognize that? By understanding I have no value other than 0. That what I call as myself, ego, is deriving its strength from ego, Atma, and recognize that self and become free. And the moment you recognize that inner strength, Atma, the self, which is 0, there is nothing in that. It is nothing. 0 is nothing. It's no value. But every value comes from that. Everything comes out of that. And what will happen to a person who has realized that self? We have to listen to the story of Guru Tegh Bahadur. Guru Tegh Bahadur. Aurangzeb was a terrible king. He slaughtered the people. He slaughtered many Kashmiris, Hindus in Kashmir. Forced them, either you get converted to Islam or I'll kill you. And many people in Kashmir got slaughtered, killed, or converted. And some of the people came to complain to Sikh Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur, that Guru Tegh Bahadur said, somebody has to go and tell Aurangzeb to stop this slaughter. But people are afraid to go in front of the Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb is a terrible king. And anybody goes will not come alive. Guru Tegh Bahadur was a self-realized man. He was fearless. Once you recognize yourself as birthless, deathless, immortal, this fear gone. Guru Tegh Bahadur goes to Aurangzeb and says, stop this torture and killing of Hindus. Aurangzeb doesn't agree. He kills Guru Tegh Bahadur. He cuts the neck of Guru Tegh Bahadur. But Guru Tegh Bahadur is fearless because the self, Atma, is birthless and deathless. The ego is always afraid. Ego wants to become a hero, but the real hero is the zero, the Atma, the self, which is the background. One who recognizes his connection to the self, one who understands that I derive the strength, my strength from that zero, that Atma, gains immense strength, immense courage. He becomes free. Otherwise, ego is baseless. It's creating stories out of air. And it knows it's afraid because its stories are out of air. The immense strength and courage comes from knowing the self, Atma Jnana. So what is Atma Jnana? All it means? Atma Jnana means that I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect. First of all, I'm not any of the stories of ego. Atma Jnana means de-hypnosis. Hypnosis created by the ego, that I'm the body, I'm the mind. It's de-hypnosis. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not anything. I'm not anything is becoming nothing. So the spiritual journey is to start from I am somebody, I am some body, to I am no body. The no body is the Atma. No body. No body is the Atma. So once you recognize that I am no body, then you start recognizing that I am everybody. The entire universe is manifestation of the self. I am everybody. From somebody called man, woman, husband, and wife. I am no body, no thought, no feeling, no emotions. I am empty. That emptiness is consciousness. I am pure. And once I am that emptiness, I am every, because everything in the universe is coming out of that pure awareness. So everything in the universe is coming out of that nothing, which is called consciousness. So once I recognize I am consciousness, I am the Atma, the tremendous strength comes. Then I realize I am everybody. I am somebody is called ego. The somebody wants to become greater and greater. This is the ego story. To recognize I am nobody is called self-realization or enlightenment. The enlightenment is peace. Then to recognize that nobody or the pure consciousness is everybody. Everything in the world is that. Is called pure love, the universal love. So the pure consciousness is no thoughts, no emotions, no feelings. It is beyond mind. There are no form. There is no images, no experiences in pure consciousness. It's almost similar to our deep sleep state, where there is non-duality. There's no other. There is peace. But first thing in the morning, the feeling of I am comes into picture. That I am is followed by body. Then I am body comes into picture. Then the world appears. So that the feeling of I am is called aham or asmita. Aham or asmita is the universal ego. Is the ego of the God. Universal ego comes first. Asmita, Ishvara. Aham. That aham, universal ego, multiplies into all the objects. Then one of the objects, I associate with this body, I associate. Then it's called ahamkara. The aham, universal ego, takes a akara, form. It's called ahamkara. I am the body feeling comes. The spiritual journey is from ahamkara, I am the body, to pure I am, which is universal ego, which is God consciousness, to deep silence where there's no thought, no feeling, no emotions, which is called nirvana or mukti or pure awareness. Ahamkara to aham, aham to deep silence. That's the spiritual journey. So when you come back, when you experience the world, you can come back and experience the world as aham. Then you feel all this is myself. The entire world is myself. This is called sarvam khalida brahma. First, you made a journey from ahankara to aham brahmasmi. I am Brahman. So in that I am Brahman, first you stay as I am, which is universal ego. Then Brahman is pure consciousness. You merge aham into pure consciousness, pure awareness. Then when you come back, you realize that aham, this universal ego, is all this, everything in the world is nothing but that aham. That aham is called Ishvara, aham is called Shakti. Aham means universal ego, is the Shakti. From this universe, entire universe has manifested. So then you stay in that aham and operate in the world. Then you are full of love, because all that is there in the world is nothing but the self only, which is consciousness. Or you can stay as the sakshi or the witness of the world, understanding that all this what is manifest is not real. You can stay as witness and operate in the world. So thus you become free from the ego, the story of the ego. To become free of the story of the ego, you have to realize your pure awareness, which is nothing, which is only consciousness, which is the source of entire life, but that itself is nothing. Or you stay as the reflected consciousness or aham, which is universal consciousness, and understand all this is myself, love. Or you stay as witness, understanding everything manifest is nothing but images and pictures, which is not real. That's sakshi. So this is how, from what we call as ego story, ego story, which is hypnosis, we come out and we understand reality, and that reality is called Atma Jnana or Mukti or Nirvana. Questions? Okay, we'll do a few minutes of silent contemplation, then I'll answer the questions. Close your eyes. Gently become aware of your breath. Just become aware of the different types of stories you have created in your life. What are the stories you have about your in life? I'm a good man. I'm a successful man. I'm a successful woman. I'm suffering. I'm happy man. I'm unhappy man. I'm happy woman. I'm unhappy woman. I'm a very religious person. I don't believe in God. I'm a spiritual person. All these are stories. All these are ego stories. See through the ego story. Drop the ego story and be yourself. I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. I'm not the intellect. I'm pure consciousness, awareness, the real self. I'm like the screen, and the screen and the story of the ego is played on the screen. I'm not the story. I'm not the image. I'm the background consciousness, awareness, it's always present. Understand this and be free. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Shanti Shanti Shanti
Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. No questions. What are the questions? Okay, the question here is the great teaching coming from the master, self-realized master. The question asked is, any teaching comes from the self-realized master. A great master, self-realized master, gives the teaching. But finally, my mind has to interpret it. And this interpretation will distort the teaching. Then how do I know the supreme truth? So, the supreme truth is there are no thoughts, no words. It's an absolute silence. It is like an ocean which has waves in the surface. As you go deeper and deeper, there's complete stillness. Similarly, in our consciousness, at the surface level, there's a world. At slightly deeper level, there is a turbulence, thoughts. If you go deeper, there's complete silence and serenity. The spiritual teaching, you have to take it as a boat. You have to take it as a vehicle. The vehicle is not your destination. The spiritual teaching is constantly pointing to you to the self. So, listening to the spiritual teaching, don't add something more concepts in your mind. Use the spiritual teaching to drop the concepts in your mind. Drop the hypnosis created by the ego. And use the vehicle of the self-enquiry to reach the destination, which is pointed by the question, who am I? The spiritual teaching is not adding any knowledge to you. Spiritual teaching is only helping you to discard wrong understanding what you have. Try to discard what wrong understanding you have. So that's how you gradually you can get deconditioned. And then the vehicle of who am I will take you to the point where the vehicle is no longer required. You merge into the deepest silence yourself. And that's the only way. Thoughts can take you up to a certain level, but go beyond the thought. The thoughts are required to you. The self-enquiry is required to go beyond the thought. But don't use the self-enquiry to add some more self-image for yourself, but use that self-enquiry to discard what wrong image you have about yourself. So the question is, ego story is ahankara katha, not aham katha. Actually, the title, should it be ahamkara katha or aham katha? See, this aham means I am, and I am itself is the source of our ahankara. So that's why I said aham katha. Okay, aham comes first and immediately it takes the form of ahankara. So it's called aham katha, the story of the ego. The movie is the ego story, but I feel the movie is the series of impersonal events happening to a BMI. So the question asked is, the movie is the ego story, but I feel that the movie is a series of impersonal events, body, mind, intellect, and the labeling is done by the ego is called the ego story. There is a series of impersonal, the series of impersonal events are happening to the body, mind, intellect, but the ego personalizes it and says it's my story. Okay, the events are impersonal, not naturally. Naturally, they are impersonal, but the ego personalizes it and states it's my story, starts participating in the story. So that's why it's ego story. What is the purpose of a creation of this ego for every BMI? What is the purpose? Does it serve anything? Reality. So what is the purpose of ego? There's a good question. What is there a purpose for the ego? In creation or in Srishti, everything is there's a purpose. Okay. So for example, a coconut has a shell, what is husk, and then there's a hard shell inside, then the soft white kernel inside. The soft white kernel is protected by thick husk outside and hard shell inside. Why? Because the white kernel is, if it's exposed to the world, the insects, the birds will destroy it. It has to be protected. So that's why the nature gives a husk outside, a thick husk, and hard coconut shell inside for protecting that soft white kernel. Why that is required? As a protection. Till what point of time? Till that soft white kernel is able to sprout. It becomes a plant. It becomes a tree. So then what happens? There's no longer the husk. The hard shell is required. They break. Similarly, the ego is given to create and help you to build a personality. To a point, you become mature. At that level, the ego is like the shell. It has to break. And the breaking open of the shell is called enlightenment or mukti. Till that time, some protection is given. Till that time, that husk, the cover, the shell is required. Till that point of time, ego is required. But if you, even after you become mature inside, if the ego doesn't break, then that fruit becomes waste. Similarly, we need an ego to certain level in life to protect from the external conditions. Once we become mature inside, that ego has to break, and we have to evolve into, we have to recognize our true self and become self-realized. So that's why ego is required up to a stage. Beyond the stage, it becomes a bottleneck. So the next question is, what makes this ego listen and accept the teachings of Advaita? Because this teaching is to destroy the ego. Will the ego start resisting? The question is, why should the ego listen to teaching of Advaita? Because ego will disappear. See, the ego is constantly searching for happiness, is constantly searching for greatness. That's the search of the ego. So it has frustrated all its search in the external world. In the external world, it has done everything to find the happiness and greatness. Then ego listens to the truth. Ego understands the search for happiness and truth is inside. So then the ego turns inwards. So that's where it comes across the spiritual teaching. Ego is attracted by the spiritual teaching, which says a great happiness, bliss is there. So getting attracted by the happiness and bliss, it moves towards the teaching. And in the process, ego dissolves itself. It's a death of the ego, but birth of an infinite being. Actually, it's not in that in itself. Ego itself, it loses its suffering. It's not that death is the end. Death is the birth of something new, something greater, something magnificent. So to seek that birth, ego turns inwards. You can always think that it's like ego is like a fly. Evening time, when you switch on the light, the flies are getting attracted by the light and they come near the light and get burnt. Similarly, ego gets attracted by the bliss of the self-realization and it gets merged in the self. Since it is not a death, actually, it's a transformation of the ego or merger of the ego in the self, in that sense. You cannot say it's a death. It's like a salt doll. When it goes to ocean, it merges with the ocean. Ego merges with the self. So, can you please explain? The next question is, can you please explain what is nididhyasa? By Rakesh. Rakesh, I have in my Light of Self group, you go, I have more than 8 or 10 lectures on nididhyasa. So you can search for lectures on nididhyasa. Very detailed explanation of nididhyasa I have given. Can you please look into that? So next question is, I have a strong Dvaita background, strong conditioned mind. Is it a big hurdle to accept Advaita teaching even though taught by Gnani? So there's the next question is, I am coming from a Dvaita background. Okay. And is it a bottleneck for me to realize this self, Advaita? See, this Dvaita, don't get hung upon the concept of Dvaita, Advaita. All of us are conditioned in life. Okay. Each of us, the moment we are born, we are conditioned by our religion, by our society, or by our family. Okay. The growth in life, as we start understanding life, we start saying, okay, what is more in it? What is reality? Don't go for Advaita because Advaita, I'm coming from Dvaita background, then I want to go to Advaita. Don't come from that. Search for truth. The truth which can give me peace. If Dvaita can give you truth and peace, you go for stick in Dvaita. So then if you find that, okay, there is something more to it, then you come to Advaita. The search has to be genuine. Search has to be seeking the truth. It's not about Advaita or Advaita. Seeking of the truth is what we are speaking of. Don't get carried away by the labels of Dvaita and Advaita. Seek the truth. The truth alone can make you free. Satyameva jayate. The truth is what we are seeking for. And the truth, once you get clarity about the truth, the untruth will fall. Dvaita is also a truth. Vishishtadvaita is also truth. Advaita is also a truth. But at various stages of evolution, something appeals to us. And that seeking for the truth has to take you, not because it's Dvaita or Advaita. Okay, so next question is, why this elaborate game? Why create the shell, and why maturity, and why breaking of the shell? Can we say it is just Leela of the Supreme? So there is a question, why this shell is created? Why the shell called ego is created, suffer, and then come out? That's why it's called a game. That's why it's called Leela. In the play is hide and seek. Okay? The one who hides and one who seeks is the same self. So that's why it's play. And that's why it's called Leela. In that Leela, the ego is created, the ego is destroyed. You can only just say it's a play. So namaste.